this series, I really believe, is a perfect timing for where we're headed as a company, and it's perfectly timing that we're starting the new year. And I call this series Breakthrough. And I really believe that there are seasons in our lives where they seem like an eternity, and it's a season where you're going through drought. It's a season where you're going through challenges. And really, those are the seasons that God uses to develop our character, to develop our faith, and to develop the inner part of us. Because everybody knows that during success, you don't really learn nearly as much when you're being successful as you do when you're failing. And so I really believe that God divinely allows seasons in our lives to really struggle and go through some severe pain sometimes in order to develop character, because he cares more about what's on the inside than he cares about what's on the outside. And so I believe that over the last year and a half, 2 years, since we got a specific word from God, that as a company, instead of getting the promise, we got nothing but challenges. But I understand that that's a part of the journey. He gave the word and a promise to us that was incredible, and then the challenges began. And so this year we're declaring a breakthrough. And the reality is, this is the season where if we work together, as we developed and learned a lot of these principles that we talked about before, but this is the year that if we work together in unity and press through, we're going to see the breakthrough. And that is in your personal lives. I declare that over you, over your family, and over the business. And so one of the key things that I would like to do in this series is really to break down step by step what are the things that we need to literally be doing and the things that need to be in place in order for us to really achieve a breakthrough. I may use some biblical stories that I really have been studying a lot later, but today specifically, I want to share with you the number one piece that we need to start with in order to get going. So you guys are ready?
Yes.
Awesome. So as we talk about getting a breakthrough, the first thing you need to understand is that there needs to be an obstacle that you have to break through. Does that make sense? So otherwise, there is no, if you don't have resistance, you can't break through. And so it is imperative that if you want to really succeed and you want us to go to the next level, both in your personal lives and in business, you have to change the way that you think about your obstacle. The obstacle isn't stopping you. The obstacle is the opportunity. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever heard all these stories. And I remember when I first surrendered to God, everybody kept telling me about these stories of these incredible people who had faith and they've achieved so many great things and they've seen so many things. And as I was listening to these stories, don't get me wrong, their stories inspired me. They were great. People of faith, people that saw these miraculous signs. But I got to a point that I said, I want my own stories. I'm tired of quoting somebody else's. And it is imperative that if you want to get a breakthrough, you have to, if you want that story, you got to go through the actual perseverance yourself and battle that barrier, that obstacle you're going through. So one of the things that I want us to understand is when you're facing head on an obstacle, if you don't have a plan, you're never going to be successful. And that's the first thing that I want to address today as we're moving forward. I want to give you some statistical information briefly here, but the first real piece, if you want to overcome an obstacle, is you have to have a strategic plan of attack. If you don't have a plan, you will never make it. And that is the reality. Now, here's some clear statistics. Over 92% of people that set New Year's goals never achieve them. That was a study done by University of Scranton. Now, one of the things they also did in the study is they actually studied the people who failed, and they started asking them through a survey a bunch of questions to find out, number one, what caused it or how they felt. And here's what they found, is that 92% of the people who failed because they didn't achieve their goals, they quit within 60 days of starting. So the moment they hit that wall, they just stopped. There was no overcoming, there was no breakthrough. The second piece that they said is everybody felt like failures. It automatically impacted the way they felt about themselves. They also developed a negative self-image, and they actually began to expect failure because that's just who I am. The next piece is that they passed on the same habits to their children. So in my opinion, that's worse than any of the other stats. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it is imperative that we really, in this moment, when we're talking about getting a breakthrough, have to make the decision. Do we want to be a part of that 92%? Or do we want to be a part of that 8% who actually break through? Now, if you want to break the cycle, you have to do what the other 8% of the goal setters do consistently and exceptionally. And that's what I really want to start with today. And you're going to find this very simple, but we'll talk a little bit more in dialogue on the business. And again, I'm just starting it out. So again, we're going to be adding in building into this particular piece, okay? So again, 92% of the people failed. They quit within 60 days. They felt like failures. They developed a negative self-image about themselves, and they ultimately passed on these bad habits to their kids. We do not want that. So we're going to break through that cycle, and we're going to be a part of that 8% of people who set goals, they're consistent, and they break those goals exceptionally well, okay? So that begins with number 1. And this is very specific. I want you to write this down. Everybody's heard set goals. We just talked about it. But this is the key. Set goals that are specific and challenging, but not too hard. I'll say that again. Set goals that are specific and challenging, but not too hard. There was two guys that were doing some research. They were part of the team that actually looked into this 92% of failures. And they also did a research on 8% of the people who actually achieved goals that were consistent. What they found is that when people followed these 2 principles, meaning specific and challenging, but not too difficult, it led to a higher performance of over 90% of the time. So it's imperative that we understand that there's a little bit of a secret sauce here. If you want your goals to be achieved, you have to be very specific, but at the same time, they have to challenge you, but not so hard. And I will be the first one to say that last year, I set so many really difficult goals that ultimately I digressed instead of moved forward. And I really believe that that was a lesson that I had to learn. So this year, let's not make that mistake. Don't throw so much at yourself and make it so huge and so big that ultimately it destroys you. But also be specific. Let's not be vague. Let me give you an example. Everybody here, usually after all the Thanksgiving meals and all of the Christmas meals, one of the big goals, and what do you think is the number 1 goal everybody sets a resolution, right? Lose weight. So let me give you an example of losing weight. This is what some people might say. I want to lose 20 pounds by the end of the year. Now, in your mind, you might think, okay, well, they want to lose 20 pounds and they give themselves a timeline. That sounds right. That sounds about right. But the reality is it's not specific enough. It's not clear enough for you to set the goals. So in return, here's what one of the short-term goals would have been to achieve that goal. During the month of February, I will commit to losing 5 pounds by cutting off refined sugar, breads, and all fast food. And I'll repeat, and all fast food. Right? Some of you are like, oh, that's a sin, right? And I will also walk 1.5 miles each day. Now, let me ask you a question. If there were 2 people in this room and that was your goal, who do you think would have the highest likelihood of success? A, the person who says, I want to lose 20 pounds by the end of the year, or B, the person that specifically gave themselves a breakdown of a goal within the next 30 days, I will commit to losing 5 pounds by cutting off refined sugars, breads, and all fast food. I will also walk 1.5 miles a day. Who do you think is going to achieve that goal?
B.
Right. So understand that when you have that much clarity around your goal, you increase your chances of success dramatically. Now, this can also be applied in our business. You yourselves are not here as a nonprofit organization. Would you agree? Everybody here wants to make money. Well, one of the things that is important for us to understand is that you make money the more value you bring to the organization, especially for those that are in sales, right? Now, if you're in sales and you say, I'm going to make 100 grand this year by the end of December, okay, you look like group A, right? I'm going to make $100,000 by A. Well, why don't we start breaking down that big goal into something smaller and really start saying, okay, by February, I'm going to achieve 6 deals by first doing a lot of my follow-ups, doing at least an hour a day in sourcing. Do you follow what I'm saying? And you start developing a very clear, concise objective. Because the moment you break that down and the moment that is clear, you can actually put it in the schedule, which I'm going to talk about next week. Okay. So again, I'm not going to go in detail on how you execute this. I just want to open your mind to start really thinking about how you're going to get a breakthrough. Okay. So again, if you want to have a strategic plan, you want it to be specific, you want it to be challenging, but not too difficult. Okay. Which is why I go to this. On the flip side, goals that are way too difficult don't get met either. And that's something that a lot of people you've probably heard is make your goals so high up that you'll achieve them, right? Like, what do they say? Reach for the moon, and worst case, you'll get the stars, right? Well, the problem with that is what people don't realize is when you make a mountain so big that you can't even climb it, you defeat yourself before you begin. And so that is why it's so important that even though you want to go to the top of the mountain, that you set smaller objectives that are going to challenge you, but that you can achieve them. It'll be like the equivalent of me saying that I'm going to go back to the gym and and start bench pressing 300 pounds. Well, guess what? I haven't done that in an extremely long time. For me to set that as a goal next month is impossible, right? I would just be defeated. I might even get injured, right? And so this is why I want to challenge us to make sure that we focus. So how do you hit your big goals? You break it down into smaller bite size so that you can actually chew on them. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.